Welcome to part 2 of the digestive system. I'm going to finish the fuel nutrients, and then we're going to go through the different layers of the digestive system, tract, alimentary tract as you go through. And that you will actually cover, you may also actually cover that also in lab. Okay, I know you've been dying to know the third fuel nutrient, and I also know that most of you probably already knew it. The last fuel nutrient is proteins. And again, remember, fuel nutrients allow you to, there are calories there, and so they allow you to make energy in the form of ATP. Proteins are made of what are called amino acids. So if you think of Legos, each Lego as an amino acid, and you build something with the Legos, the whole thing you've built is a protein. Okay, is a protein. There are 20 different types of amino acids. 20 different types of amino acids. The body can make 12 of these from different ingredients. The other 8 are what we call essential amino acids. And what that means is you must take them in through your diet. Proteins, you think of animal sources, meat, and so on. If you eat meat, chicken, fish, beef, then you are getting those 8 essential amino acids in that meat. If you are a vegetarian, then you are not getting them all in a serving. So when you eat the chicken, you're eating the chicken's muscles, you eat the cow's muscles, you get those 8. If you are a vegetarian, you are not getting those 8 in one serving, where you can get that in meat. So if you are a vegetarian, there are lots of vegetarians that are not healthy vegetarians. If you are a healthy vegetarian, then what you do is you combine other protein sources, non-animal sources, to make sure that you're bringing in all those 8. So you have to make sure that you're eating different proteins so that you get those 8 essential amino acids. Again, if you eat meat, you are getting those in the serving because you're getting them from the animal source. So here are just examples of some of the amino acids. They all have a unique shape. When you put them together, you connect them by a peptide bond, then they will form unique shapes that allow proteins to do the different functions that they have. Proteins are the most diverse molecules in the body. They pretty much make up everything: your hair, muscle, enzymes, the neurotransmitters that we talked about in your brain. Many of them are proteins. All the enzymes we're going to talk about throughout digestion are proteins. Proteins are everywhere. We talked about all the different proteins that make up your muscles. So proteins are everywhere. They do many things. They do a wide variety of things in a human being. Now, we talked about proteins being a fuel nutrient. There is 4 calories in a gram of protein, like carbohydrates, but your body cannot use proteins efficiently. It is not the first choice they have. The first choice is to use fats and carbohydrates. If you are burning proteins, what that means is you are breaking down or burning muscle to do that. So your body has to take the protein from somewhere, muscles, including the heart, to use them as a fuel. So you don't really want to be using protein as a fuel. When people take protein supplements, they're taking those supplements and they are overrated. And you got to be careful about how much you take. But when you're taking those protein supplements, you're using them to build muscle, okay? To build muscle. You're not using them to provide energy. So again, you don't really want your body using protein as an energy. Because it means you're breaking down muscle, including the heart. With someone who's severely anorexic, an anorexic person doesn't eat, their weight goes down severely, they don't have carbs and they don't have fats because their body's used it all to make energy. What their body will start to do, it will start to break down the heart and muscle to then use those proteins to make ATP, and that can be very dangerous. So in some cases with anorexics, and you guys are too young to remember Karen Carpenter, but she was the Carpenters, a singing group, brother and sister singing group. She's probably one of the first famous people that we knew about that was anorexic. And what she died of was heart failure. And she actually died of it as she was gaining weight. And the reason that happened was when she was losing weight in a low weight and she had no fats and carbs, her body started breaking down the heart to make energy, to take that muscle to make energy for the heart to work, which is kind of ironic. But then when she started gaining weight, she was lacking so much heart muscle that her heart could not keep up with the workload, and that's actually how she died. So again, you don't really want to be using proteins as a fuel source. Again, you'll use protein when the body is deprived of fats and carbs. High protein diets, we've heard different things about this. They can be dangerous. You need to be very careful. Remember, we talked about how the brain needs glucose. Your body does have a way to turn protein into glucose for the brain. It's not very efficient. You've also had to be careful with kidneys, and that's an issue with people taking protein supplements, is it can be very hard on your kidneys when you have a high protein diet. It puts a lot of stress on them, and we'll talk about that when we get to the urinary system. Okay, so the goal of digestion is to break proteins down into their amino acid subunits. Again, we're breaking things down from big to small, absorb those amino acids into the bloodstream, and then send them to the body to be used to build all the different things we've talked about: hair, muscles, enzymes, neurotransmitters, etc. So here you have a protein, you break it down by enzymes, and then you have amino acids which travel through the bloodstream and are used by the body to build what you need. Okay, I'm just going to show you this food label. We may or may not go over how to exactly read one, but when you're looking at a food label, you focus on these. Here's the calories per serving. Here are the 3 fuel nutrients: fat, carbohydrates, and protein. So you can calculate the amount of calories you're getting from each of these based on what I've told you. For every gram, there's 9 calories of fat. Carbohydrate, there's 4 calories per gram. Protein, there are 4 calories. So you use this to determine how much of the food you're eating comes from each of those fuel nutrients. All right, other nutrients taken in by the digestive system. We've all heard about the importance of water, and it is important. You need it. Your body needs it for metabolism. Most people don't get enough of it. We will talk about the thirst reflex that we have, and that it's not very efficient. So most of your body is water. We talked about this early in the semester. You do need water. The 8-ounce glasses of water a day is not necessarily true. That kind of showed up in textbooks years and years ago when I was actually in school. And the studies really haven't supported that. But I will tell you that most people don't drink enough, so the more you get, the better. Can you drink too much water? You actually can. Where it's most dangerous is if you're drinking a lot of water. We talked about this early in the semester. When you're drinking a lot of water, you're sweating, you're losing salts, you're losing ions, and you're losing water, and you just replace water. That can be dangerous, and we'll talk about that later. But it is difficult to consume too much water. Ions, which we just talked about. We've spent a lot of time on ions with the nervous system. You have an idea with muscles, how important they are to generate electricity, action potentials, and so obviously those are important. Minerals and vitamins. Minerals are inorganic and assist the body in functions. So calcium we've talked about with blood or with bone. Iron we'll talk about with blood. Iron's important, especially for women, to get enough of it. So even though these are inorganic, they're still really important, and they can really screw up the function of your body if not consumed enough and not absorbing enough. Vitamins, the difference is they are organic. Vitamins A, B, E, and C. We got different vitamins. Very important. We will talk about an example in blood when you don't have sufficient vitamins. You would think nowadays this wouldn't be an issue, but it can be. It can be. So we'll talk about vitamins, but they are organic, and they assist the body in metabolism and doing the things it needs to do in order to function correctly. Bananas are good for you because we talk about you talk about potassium, okay, in terms of ions. They also contain vitamins, and that's good. Okay, so when we look at that takes care of nutrients. As we look at the digestive tract, starting at your mouth and going all the way down to your anus, like I said, it's one continuous tube with these accessory organs, the liver and the pancreas, being accessory organs and secreting things into that tube. But if you look at this under a microscope, you look at the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, all the way down, there are 4 main layers that you will see in this digestive tract. And so we may look at these in lab, but definitely you need to know them for lecture in terms of function. So I'm going to go through each of the 4, starting with the one closest to the opening, because remember there's going to be an opening here from the mouth all the way down that food is going to travel. What goes in doesn't always come out, but it's going to travel down a tube throughout that tract. So the mucosa is the inner layer. This is the layer closest to the opening. And go back to our lecture in our lab on tissues. Okay, remember tissues, epithelial, are going to be closest to an opening. So the mucosa layer, the layer closest to the opening, is going to be epithelial tissue. Okay, remember epithelial tissue covers or connects, or not connects, it covers. Okay, so epithelial tissue, you're going to see stratified squamous, so several layers. We saw that in the mouth. You get down especially into the intestines, and you're going to see these simple columnar cells. So these are closest to the opening, okay, closest to the opening. epithelial. These are going to be constantly worn away and regenerated, okay, because they're epithelial tissues, so they go through mitosis a lot. One of the goals of the digestive tract is to increase surface area. By increasing surface area, we increase absorption. So that means you can take in more nutrients, especially again in the small intestine. So you're going to see a lot of, I'll show you when I show you the picture, a lot of what are called plicae. This is going to increase the surface area. You're going to see it's very curvy, very wavy. That again, increased surface area, increased absorption. On the lower layer of mucosa, you're going to see some connective, but you're going to focus for mucosa on the fact that it contains epithelial tissue. The submucosa, sub meaning below. The submucosa is primarily going to be connective tissue. It's going to have nerves, blood vessel, and glands. The nervous system is very innervated. There's lots of blood vessels. That's how you're going to absorb the nutrients, especially again in the small intestine. It's going to go from that opening through the epithelial tissue into the submucosa layer, into the blood vessels, and then head to the body. There are also glands. Okay, we've talked about glands with hormones. You're going to see a lot of glands in the submucosa layer. It is innervated by the autonomic nervous system. Again, this should be a review. Autonomic nervous system is the part you don't want to have to think about, and we talked about how the digestive system kind of does its thing without you really having to put much thought into it. So what part of the autonomic nervous system is it primarily innervated by? There's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So parasympathetic, sympathetic. Which one primarily controls the controls the digestive system? If you remember, it is the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so parasympathetic is going to increase digestion. So when the parasympathetic is firing, you're going to be actively digesting, breaking down molecules, absorbing those molecules. When the sympathetic, fight or flight, is in control, digestion kind of slows down. Blood flow doesn't go to the digestive system as much, so the parasympathetic is going to be in control, and that innervation comes through the submucosal layer. The third layer is the muscular layer, the muscularis. Smooth muscle, okay, involuntary. We're reviewing a lot of things we've gone over in the past. Smooth muscle. Okay, so what's going to happen is it's called peristalsis. When you swallow, smooth muscle contracts, moves the foodstuff down to the stomach. Stomach does the same thing, churning, moves it down the small intestine. Again, you're going to move this food through the digestive system. Smooth muscle, involuntary. Remember, not the striations, but still has actin and myosin, just you can't see it as neatly, and it moves through. So that third layer of the digestive system, digestive tract, is the muscularis layer. Again, under autonomic nervous control. When the parasympathetic is in control, the muscular layer is going to contract more. The fourth layer, the outer layer, is the serosa. This is basically the connective tissue that's going to hold these different parts of the digestive tract in place, so they're not moving all over the place, not moving around. Again, it's going to attach the digestive organs to the surrounding area. All right, so let's look at a picture. So here's the tube. Okay, here's the opening. This is where the food stuff's going to go. So your mucosa layer, okay, is going to be this epithelial tissue right here, closest to the opening. So that layer, as the food comes through, is going to wear away that layer, and it's going to go through mitosis and regenerate it. Okay. You also see there's some glands in here. Then we get to the submucosa layer. Okay, the submucosa layer. Submucosa is going to have a lot of these glands. Okay, you see these glands. It's also going to have the nerve supply, and you're also going to see this blood supply. Okay, in the submucosa layer. Then we go to the outer layer, and this is the muscularis layer. This is where you have different layers of smooth muscle going in several different directions. So as the foodstuff moves, how does it move? These layers are going to contract. Okay, think of like a little twisting action there, peristalsis, moving the foodstuff down the tract. Okay. These layers are going to look slightly different in the esophagus versus the stomach versus the small intestine versus the large intestine. But these are the basics of each of the layers. And then the serosa layer, the outer layer, that's the layer that's going to connect this, whether it's the esophagus or whether it's this small intestine, large intestine, connect it to the area of the body that it's located in order to keep things kind of stable. Okay, so here is a look under the microscope. So here's your opening. Here's your mucosa epithelial layer. So this case is simple columnar, again closest to the opening. Then you get into the submucosa, connective tissue here, okay, glands, nerve supply, blood supply comes in there. Out here you have the muscularis layer. Okay, the muscularis layer, these different layers of smooth muscle that are going to contract, squeeze this, and move the stuff along. And then out here you get into the serosa layer, the outer layer that allows whatever part of the digestive system this is to connect to the part of the body that it's located. Okay. All right, so those are the 4 layers. Know the basic for lecture. You need to know the basic what each layer is, what it contains, and what it does. And then in lab, we'll look at this slide under the microscope. Okay, that's the end of part 2 of the continuing saga of the digestive system. Again, check the objectives. Make sure you can answer those, right, based on what you've watched on the video. All right, goodbye.